So Has-Been Hotel and Hell of a Boss are two shows that I'm quite vocal about my disdain for, at least to friends. There are many problems that these shows have that just make them very hard for me and many others to enjoy. From the characters constantly reverting to zero, to the shocking lack of maturity for adult shows, to the lackluster humor, etc., etc. There are a lot more problems that I could talk about in length, but the one aspect I want to focus on for this video is the character designs. Now, Vivzie's art style itself isn't bad. I think the art in the two shows is completely fine, even if it's not my cup of tea. What I do have a problem with, however, is the way she designs her characters. Now, I'm not alone in that opinion. Her designs are very divisive, though I feel that many of the conversations that address the problems often have very pointless arguments, which is quite sad considering there are genuine issues that could be addressed. So this video will be me discussing what I see wrong in Vivziepop's character designing philosophy and giving advice on how I think it could be improved. Before we start this, please keep in mind that all of this is just my opinion on the matter, and nothing I say is gospel. Especially when it comes to something as subjective as art. I may be an artist who's been creating for almost my whole life, but I'm by no means a professional, and you have no obligation to agree with me on anything I say. What I may hate, you may love, and vice versa. And that's perfectly fine. We all have our own tastes. I also want to say that this is not intended as an attack on Viv or to put her down. As much as I may dislike her work, it would just be pathetic of me to just treat her like some unfixable loser over fictional designs, when in reality she's just a flawed artist whose fans deflect any criticism away from her ears. Hey, this is future Elgin here. I just need answers as to what the hell is going on. I see media exposing Vivziepop as a bad person, but then I also hear like the same amount of people saying that all the drama is over-exaggerated. Can someone just be the middle ground and tell me which one is more correct? Like, what the fuck is going on? This video is just meant to serve as constructive criticism in the hopes that maybe you guys, and by low chance Vivziepop herself, can learn from it and avoid any mistakes I point out in the future. Now with that out of the way, let's get to the main points. So to begin, we have one that's more of an issue of the medium that the shows are using, rather than the actual design quality. A lot of characters in the two shows either have lots of small unnecessary details, or an excessive amount of colors that clutter the design, examples of which being Husk with his small wing patterns, and Beelzebub with her absolute color vomit of a design. By the way, speaking of Beelzebub, I will talk about her in length a lot later, just to let you know, okay? This in turn makes for characters that can sometimes be hard to discern certain important features from, as there are a lot of things on the design that fight for your attention all at once. However, that is not my main issue with the overdesigning. My main problem is the fact that these overdesigned characters are used in animation. As someone who does animations from time to time, I can say with full confidence that it is a nightmare trying to make even simple characters move in a way that doesn't make me want to get neck kisses from a noose. Adding so many needless details to designs can leave the animators in a fight for their sanity whilst trying to make it look consistently good. If you intend on doing something like comics or just plain illustrations sprinkled in a book, then you are allowed more liberty with detail as you have way less stuff to draw. But if you want to make characters for animation, you need to restrict yourself to much fewer additions to the designs for the sake of removing workload from the animators, or else you'll just add more additional stress to a job that's already brutal and underpaid in the industry. Now this is where we get to the parts that actively hinder the quality of these characters substantially. Same body syndrome is the issue where many characters have the exact same body type, with the only two categories being boy and girl. Now, this particular issue isn't actually too present in Hell of a Boss, as the body types do diversify quite a bit, and a lot of the times where they have similar body types actually make sense, such as all the imps being short and stubby. That's completely fine. The issue does, however, have a massive presence in the main cast of Has-Been Hotel, which is really bad considering it's affecting the most important characters to the show. You've probably seen images of the primary gang as silhouettes and looking near identical to each other aside from a few unique features on their heads. This is a major problem, just not for the reasons that most usually say. A lot of people say that it hampers diversity in the cast and makes them blend in a lot more. And while that is true, I feel that there's a much bigger problem at the hand. One of the biggest points I want to make with this video as I go on is that a character design is supposed to tell a story. It is supposed to tell the audience what kind of person the character is without them saying a word, and convey the story that is to be told with the character. The same body syndrome, especially with more stylized artworks such as Vivziepop's, dilutes a lot of that visual storytelling, leaving a lot to be desired. When every character in the main cast is this anorexic twink, it is a lot more difficult to get a grasp as to what you want to convey with the design. Alistair, for example, is supposed to be this charming yet threatening man who's foretold to be a horrid danger if not dealt with carefully. And for that you would expect a much more healthy, confident, and maybe even strong look. But all that's washed away with his sticks for limbs. Lucifer Morningstar is the king of hell himself. Sure, a very cheery, soft, supportive dad version, but still king of hell and a fallen angel at that as well. You would expect a very big, intimidating, yet beautiful figure, and what we get is a malnourished circus ringleader. There's also a slight case of same face syndrome in both shows, as most characters either have a big, toothy smile that looks copy-pasted on everyone who has it, or just grumpy and edgy looking. There's a lot more I could say on how poorly these designs convey the characters, but I will leave that for the next topic, which goes to it in a lot more detail and in a lot more ways. So this point is kind of a bunch of related points joined together, and it's also my biggest gripe with the designs by far. I could look past all the other problems and tolerate the designs were it not for the god-awful woobification of characters and overall poor conveying of them in both shows. To explain what I mean, let's take Beelzebub, probably the worst designed character of the two shows and the perfect example of this issue, and dissect their form bit by bit. So, wipe your memory. Forget everything you know about this character and treat this like you've never seen her before in your life. And tell me, what does this design say to you? What does this design say about this character? If I had to guess, most, if not all of you, would not at all say the sin of gluttony. There is nothing about this design that tells you she is gluttony personified, and any part of her that tries is far too weak to convey anything meaningful. Gluttony as a sin is an insatiable lust for food that can leave you eating your way to death if left unchecked. And all this design says to me is athletic party girl just entering her 20s. To be fair, she's also written that way in the show, but that's also a problem because, like, why the fuck would you write an ancient demon personifying a cardinal sin as some random high school thought? But I digress. Now, I have heard one argument where she looks that way because she's supposed to lure you into committing the sin by looking like this ideal version that doesn't suffer any of the problems that the sins should cause. And you know what? I would definitely think of that as good character design. If that was the intent. You see, I don't actually believe that point to be the case because of one thing. Vivziepop gave an explanation of Bee being skinny because of her lava lamp stomach burning away any calories. And that would be just such a pointless thing to give an explanation to if all you were trying to do was just make her an ideal version to lure people in. Which is why I believe that that wasn't even the intention. Beelzebub is just poorly thought out in terms of her Beelzebub design, because the whole lava lamp thing in general is the only thing conveying anything close to gluttony, and it does such a pitiful job at it. She has no signs of being eternally hungry or being a deranged junkie like you would expect from a demon representing gluttony, and it just makes her feel like she was designed without her very character in mind. Another point I want to make, also using B as an example, is that she has absolutely no intimidation or disgusting nature, despite her high yet horrid status in hell. When you hear of a high-rank demon being the embodiment of a sin of any kind, you would expect something terrifying, a dangerous feeling, maybe even grotesque, depending on the sin. And yet, the Beelzebub and her fellow sins are extremely underwhelming in that regard. None of them feel very horrid or powerful like they should, and rather just like another demon you'd see across the street. In fact, the sins feel very cutesy and woobified for what they're supposed to be. I've heard people saying, why are people hating on B? She's so cute. When that's the problem. I shouldn't find someone representing something so disgusting to be cute at all. It feels as if Vivziepop was just so scared shitless to draw anything genuinely ugly or creepy, and it only worsened their designs as a result. And this is the biggest issue with the characters in the show. The designs of so many of them convey nothing or just not enough of what they're told to be. And it's only worsened by the fact that they're always drawn so cutesy or childishly, clashing with the supposedly serious, demonic tone of the story. Alistair barely looks like a serial killer or like a radio demon, and he's about as scary as the tiny lizards I see scampering across my kitchen. Lucifer looks more like he runs a circus than he does hell, and for a fallen angel with the balls to go against his brethren, he looks frail and spineless. Angel Dust's web of crime symbolism is such an obscure term to use that no one will understand without using the wiki, and it's done so poorly that I just legit thought he was a fluffy guy and not even a spider. And Ozzy looks and feels more like some passionate pole dancer I found on the street rather than a high-rank demon representing the sin of the toxic addiction to sex itself. No one looks like how they are, with very few exceptions, and whatever presence they're supposed to have is watered down by how ooh-woo cutesy they are. Hey, this is Future Elgin here again, and I just wanted to give about 3 additions to the main point because I feel it's a bit incomplete without them. One being, I don't entirely hate these designs because they look good. They look great even. Like, they have really nice color theory, really great features and shapes. Like, they just look good. The only thing I hate is just how they're used, is how they're just really bad at portraying the characters that they're trying to be. If they weren't for those things, if they were for something entirely original or just completely different, I think they would have been fantastic. It's just the story that they're used in that makes them a problem. Speaking of which, I also feel we should discuss a bit more about the context in which these character designs are used in. My prime example being Lucifer Morningstar. Now, while he is the king of hell, he's also meant to be this more modernized, soft-hearted version, and as opposed to other depictions of him that we see most of the time. And he also has a daughter of all things that he loves and supports. And because of that, we should design him a bit differently to how we usually do it. Just because he's the king of hell does not mean that he has to look barbaric, or like he's in flaming armor, or like the final boss of a Soulsborne game. No, that doesn't work in the context in which he's being used. We can add stuff like suits, bow ties, or just make him look more friendly in general, so long as he still looks like Lucifer. We can have a slightly subverted version of the source material, so long as it still feels at least a little bit like the source material. Otherwise, we'll just have this completely new character that isn't at all like what we were originally trying to depict. It'll just have the original source material by its name and only that. And that's the problem with Vivzie's character designs. A lot of the characters, especially some of the more religious-based ones like Lucifer or the Sins, just feel like their entire original source material was washed away and just added with new features that could have worked if we just kept the sources. We could have added the suit and the hat and all the snakes and stuff to Lucifer if we didn't just wash away anything that made him feel like a fallen angel or like a king of hell. We could have given all the changes that the Sins had to them if they weren't washed of anything that made them look like the Sins. That's the problem. That is not good character design because these are not the characters that we're trying to depict. These are completely new things that just have their names. That's not good. One last thing I want to discuss before we get to the final overview. It's just the fact that the transformations themselves just feel so goddamn boring. Like, for example, Luna gets a transformation in one of the latest episodes, and literally all that happens is that she just goes on all fours and gains a few extra eyes close to where her already existing ones are. And Alistair too, he just gets bigger horns and just grows a few feet. Like, that is so lame. You have whole demonic characters and you do almost nothing with their transformations where they show their true colors or just get more aggressive. Like, if you're gonna do something demonic, give them eyes where they shouldn't be, like the fingers or the hands or the mouth and tongue. Give me fingers for teeth. Give me horns protruding out of their back so much that they look like a deranged porcupine. Give me wings replacing their eyes or just putting them in the arms. Like, give me something, man. Like, this is the lamest possible outcome you could do with demonic transformations. You claim all these characters to be so badass or cool, and this is what you do with them? This is it? That's bullshit. I'm not gonna lie, that's bullshit. Also, I haven't slandered the angels enough. I've mainly just been talking about the demons. So, the executioners just look like some emo band boys. Like, what is this character design? This is awful. With that, we've gone over all my main issues with the character designs, and can now make an overview of everything discussed. So from taking all the points and putting them together, one thing is very, very clear. Vivziepop is reluctant to use her own premise to its fullest, or in this case, even a decent bit. For a story based in the dimension of eternal suffering and agony, the characters feel very tame and underwhelming. None of the characters feel like real demons or angels because they're so watered down in terms of any of the ugly or horrid stuff that makes them that. So many opportunities to make truly vile, demonic characters all went to waste as Vivzie just settled to make cutesy furries and skrunklies and passing them off as demons because they swear a lot or just have horns. This doesn't end at character designs either. The world building, the childish humor, and overall writing paint this very sterile, safe version of hell and demons that ends up feeling more like some Broadway-style city than actual hell. It feels as if Vivziepop was only concerned about using hell because it was edgy enough to make her show seem mature, rather than because she actually was interested in reinterpreting the infernal realm in any cool way. This is why many people call Hell of a Boss and Has Been Hotel fan fictions of themselves, because they feel more like a shipper who's ignoring the dark undertones of the media they're using in order to just write about their favorite characters kissing, which there's a lot of in the two shows. Heaven and Hell are only those places by color and names alone, leaving us as the audience with an empty husk of what could have been. So the lesson I want you guys to take from this video is that if you want to have a premise, commit to the premise. If you're going to set a story in hell, make the place feel like hell. If you're making a story set in somewhere disgusting and vile, make the place feel disgusting and vile. A world isn't just to make the story have a vibe, it's also a stage that the characters have to follow the rules of. And if you do just whatever you want with your characters without considering the world that they live in, you end up with an incoherent mess, with a world that doesn't know what it wants to be and shapes itself around the characters rather than the opposite like it should. Again, none of this is meant to be hate towards Vivziepop. As mean as I might have been during this review, I'm only doing it to just show the full impact that these flaws have on the shows. In the end, I just want the best for stories like these, and want to provide lessons to anyone aspiring to be like Viv. So if by any chance you're watching this, Vivzie, I want you to understand that while, yeah, you do get a lot of unnecessary hate and toxicity aimed at you, there are a lot, and I mean a lot of voices spouting genuine issues with your shows that you shouldn't just ignore. The worst thing an artist can do is treat themselves like there's nothing needed to be fixed, because all you're going to do is stagnate and never become more than what you already are. So please, hear some voices out and just hear their gripes with your media. and see if there's anything you can do to change that. And that's gonna do it for this video. Thank you all for watching thus far if you have, and I hope you enjoyed. I hope any of you can take something away from what I've made and can hopefully improve on any story or art that you might be trying to do at the moment. This is my first scripted video ever, and I have to say it was really nerve-wracking trying to make something like this, especially since I've never done something to this scale before. Yeah, I hope that you guys got to take something away from this, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye!